Trails fans, we need to start preparing ourselves because there's a very good chance the ending is gonna suck. Hey, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon, and I'm still thinking a lot about the ending of the Trails series. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video talking about Falcom's plans and some of the little tidbits of information that they've given us so far about the final arc of the series, which they are in the preparation stages for, right? They're beginning to write it, so they know that it's coming to an end soon. And with Trails Beyond the Horizon, we've gotten some pretty significant answers to some series-long questions, right? So it's definitely starting to feel more and more like we are entering the end game. Now, it may still be another 7 years, maybe 8 years until we actually reach the final game in the series, because keep in mind, they're going to be making a lot of these remakes as they go along, so their resources are going to be diverted, right? They're going to have basically 2 parallel lines that they're running along with the Trails series, not to mention Ys and Kyoto Xanadu and whatever else they might be working on. So it may take a while, but I think we are finally in the end game of the series. The thing is, and the thing that I keep coming back to is I'm not confident, even after everything I've seen, which has been all positive, I'm just not confident that they're going to be able to pull this off. And that's because it's almost impossible for them to do it. There's something that I think of as the weight of expectation, right? This is a series that has been going on for 20 years, right? More than 20 years in Japan. In America, not quite as long, but still, 15-ish years at this point that we've had Trails in our lives. If you've been around since the beginning, hey, from one OG to another, nice to see you. But it's been a long running series, and we've had more than a dozen games at this point, with the storyline being kind of trickle fed to us all along. And to finally wrap this up in a way that is 100% satisfying, a conclusion that just feels good to everyone, is going to be impossible. It's just not going to happen. When I think about this, I think a lot about Stephen King. I don't know if anybody out there is a Stephen King reader. I mean, of course people out there are. He's like one of the most popular authors in the world. But if you're a Stephen King reader, you maybe have read the Dark Tower series. And the Dark Tower is maybe the closest analog to the Trails series in terms of popular fiction and video game series. The Dark Tower was a series of initially 7 books that he wrote over the course of decades. He did not rush these things out in the span of 10 years like a J.K. Rowling or any of these other big series writers that are pumping out novel after novel. It took him a long time to finish this series. So fans that had been there for the long haul, they were excited, right? When finally we were getting the 7th and last book called The Dark Tower, we were going to finally see how the journey ended. And I was one of those people, not from the beginning. I was not even born when the series started, but I had been reading them for quite a while and was excited to finally get the conclusion to the story. Right before the epilogue of the story, there is a coda. There is a little note that reads as if it's from the author, right? As if Stephen King is kind of reinserting himself into the story to say, hang on real quick, before we wrap this up, I have something I want you to know. And I'm going to read an excerpt from this, okay? This is just a piece of it, edited. I'm not reading the whole thing. He says, I've told my tale all the way to the end and am satisfied. It was the kind only a good God would save for last, full of monsters and marvels and voyaging here and there. I can stop now, put my pen down and rest my weary hand. I can close my eyes to Midworld and all that lies beyond Midworld. That's the world that the stories take place in. I'm going to skip a little bit here, but he says, you say you want to know how it all comes out. You say you want to follow Roland into the tower. You say that is what you paid your money for, the show you came to see. I hope most of you know better, want better. I hope you came to hear the tale and not just munch your way through the pages to the ending. And so, my dear constant reader, I tell you this, you can stop here. Should you go on, you will surely be disappointed, perhaps even heartbroken. Let me read that one more time. Should you go on, you will surely be disappointed, perhaps even heartbroken. There is no such thing as a happy ending. I never met a single one equal to Once Upon a Time. Endings are heartless. Ending is just another word for goodbye. So Stephen King is coming out right at the conclusion to his decade-spanning series and saying, listen, folks, I've got an ending for you here. I've given it a lot of thought. I've put in the work. We've finally reached it. I'm going to recommend you just stop reading right now. Close the book and think up your own ending in your own head. Because no matter what, you are going to be disappointed. To some extent, this is not going to achieve the goals that you want it to, because you have been invested in this story for so long. The weight of your expectations is far too great for me as the creator to uphold. I can't do it. It's impossible. That is exactly how I've been thinking about the Trails series. Like there's so much that has gone into the series for all these years. So many threads that have been woven together to create this tapestry of a plot and all of these characters that are interrelated with all of their machinations and everything going on behind the scenes. And we're starting to get little glimpses of that as of Trails Beyond the Horizon, but we don't know anything close to the full story yet. And I think that when we do, no matter what the answer to all the questions happens to be, we're going to be disappointed. And it's just inevitable, because it's not just the disappointment of a question not being answered the way we want it to, but it's going to be all intermingled with the natural disappointment that this thing we love is coming to an end. So I feel like it's next to impossible to walk away from a series like this with nothing but good feelings. It just is not in our nature. There are a lot of like actual real world reasons why I feel like it's going to be a big struggle for them to nail an ending that is even satisfying for most people. And I want to talk about those. And I'm generally going to be avoiding big spoilers as we continue to talk about this. So if you're worried about spoilers, I would say don't be too worried. If you're watching this and you haven't played any of the Trails games and you'd like to not know anything going into them, maybe click away and watch something else, or go play the Trails games. They're great. But if you haven't played Trails Beyond the Horizon to completion, I'm going to avoid anything that gives away the ending of that. But I am going to be talking about things in a broad sense. So just be forewarned, I guess. So one of the major reasons that I kind of foresee challenges with ending this series is that there have been a lot of cooks in the kitchen over the years, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that most of the core team at Falcom has remained the same, but people have been coming in and out of the studio over the years. And right now we know that they've been in the process of scaling up as well, right? They've been hiring developers because they're taking on a lot more projects at one time than they ever have, right? They're working on Trails remakes. They're working on new entries in the Trails series. They're working on East games, probably new and remakes there as well. They're working on the Xanadu series again. And from what I understand, I believe that there may even be more that they haven't talked about yet. So they are a busy studio for being just a few dozen people, right? They have a lot of irons in the fire, like relative to other companies. So they are, I don't want to say stretched thin, because I don't think that they necessarily are. I hope they're not. I hope that they have a good work-life balance and are happy. But there's a lot on their plates. And keeping track of all of the different moving pieces for all of these different games, all these projects with their various leads and the teams under them, it's a challenge even under the best of circumstances. But like, this is a challenge that is beyond just like a normal sort of challenge for a game company making a video game. They are talking about ending this super long running series, a series that has essentially been telling the same story for all of this time in all of these games, and to wrap that up in a satisfying way with so many people spread out over so many things. I do worry that like they're not going to be able to have the focus that they need to give us the best ending that they possibly could. Okay, so that's one sort of real world complication that I think could negatively affect the ending. The other piece that I think is just as significant is the structure of the games themselves and the pieces that make them up, right? We have at this point in the Trail series, I think nearly 100, maybe more playable characters. I mean, if you're talking about characters that you have played as even for a short time over the course of every game in the series, if we're not at 100 already, we are very close to it, and we will definitely be over 100 by the time the series is done. That is a redonkulous, I don't think anyone's used that word in like 10 years, but I can't think of a better word to describe redonkulous number of characters in a JRPG series. Absolutely insane. That's so many. How do they keep it all straight? How do they provide satisfying conclusions for all of these characters with their complex histories and their interconnected stories? How do you do that? And even setting aside the 100-ish playable characters that we've seen over the course of the series. And I think you can argue a lot of them, their stories were they kind of played out within a single game or within an arc. That's true, right? That's fine. Like, not every character has a story that spans the length of the entire series, but there's still a lot of, I think, expectation for fan favorite characters throughout the course of the series to get some kind of additional payoff before the end, because that's sort of the reward we expect, right? As longtime fans of a series, we want to see our favorite characters get the things that we want them to get. But even setting aside those characters that we've played as, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other important characters, right? They are significant parts of the overall story, and we can't possibly think that they're going to be ignoring those characters' stories, right? Like, those stories are often just as important as the main cast's stories. So you have your party of 100 people to provide satisfying conclusions for. You have a just rogues gallery is not the right word, a big group of people, right? An auditorium-sized number of significant characters to intelligently, cleverly work into a story of this size. How do you do that? How do you do it? And then we need some sort of resolution to, all of the various conflicts between the nations. The Erebonian Empire, Calvard, Liberl, Elsheim. We've got so many countries that have been set up with their own kind of complicated political situations that they're in and their complex relationships with each other. How do we resolve that? Not to mention this sort of like outside of Zemuria, right? If we want to talk about minor spoilers, I guess, it was revealed several games ago that you can only go so far within, the continent of Zemuria before you can't go any farther. And it's unclear to this point exactly what that means, why you can't travel any farther than a certain point beyond, the known land, the known world. So we don't fully understand that, but we also know that there is some outside influence. So there probably is a world outside of Zemuria. So we have that whole side of it too that we haven't even seen yet, right? Like, we haven't seen what's outside of Zemuria yet, but we know that there's got to be something out there, or they wouldn't be teasing it the way they have been, right? Like, they're not setting that up just to rug pull and be like, actually, no, that was nothing. Don't worry about it. Like, there's something going on out there. So that's a pretty significant thing that they need to incorporate into this ending as well. And then, of course, we have Ouroboros, which has been around from the very beginning and has been putting their plans into motion to try and do something. If you have played Trails Beyond the Horizon to completion, you have at least the beginnings of an idea of what that something is that they're trying to do, right? Like, I'm not going to go into it in detail just to avoid heavy spoilers, but we know that the things that they have been doing have been effective in doing what they're trying to do. Is that vague enough? Yeah, so their various plans have been done with purpose, and we don't fully understand why. Well, we understand the why. I'll say we do understand why they're doing it, but we don't understand why the things that they did affected the outcome in the way that they did. But I'm sure we will, or at least I want to be sure we will. But again, it's like one of these things where there is all of this complexity to, even just if you just take Ouroboros as an organization, there's all this complexity within Ouroboros and these stories that are all connected to each other and that are interwoven into the fabric of the grand overall plot. And they need to find a way to satisfyingly weave that into conclusion. It is a massive, massive undertaking, which I guess brings me back to Stephen King, right? He kind of broke the fourth wall at the end and stepped in front of the camera and said, look, you all had a great time with this story so far. And I think that I'm gonna disappoint you if you keep going. So maybe you stop, right? Now, you can argue that like that's not really Stephen King saying that. It's kind of written into the story as like the narrator is, but I feel like it is, because I also felt an intense disappointment when I got to the end of the Dark Tower. And I think over the last, 18 years or however long it's been since I read that last book for the first time, I've come to appreciate what he did in that ending, but it took a long time. It took a long time for me to come around on it and understand it and be comfortable with it. And I just can't imagine at this point a scenario in which it doesn't take a significant amount of time for those of us in the fan community who have been following this story for a long time, that it doesn't take us a long time to come around on whatever the ending ends up being. I think it's going to be extremely divisive. And I use the word sucks, right? I say it's going to be terrible or whatever. Like, I don't know that I actually believe it is going to be that, but I believe that's how it's going to feel. It's going to feel like it sucks. It's going to feel disappointing and terrible when it happens. Let me talk real quick about some of the things that I am afraid might happen as part of the conclusion, and then some of the things that I kind of hope will happen. This is, again, I'm not really trying to do spoilers here, but I am going to be talking about some big picture things. So if you are, again, just kind of averse to that and you haven't played all the way through the series, click away for now. Come back sometime and check out my thoughts and we can talk about them. But yeah, for now, maybe just click away. My fears, and I think that I'm not alone in this particular fear, and there are reasons that I have it and others have it. I really don't want this to be some kind of this was all a simulation kind of Matrix style twist / rug pull, where we learn Zemuria is really just some computer generated thing and people living outside of the computer generated thing are studying them, or there's it's some sort of escape a la Ready Player One that people can go into. There are a lot of ways that you could implement a simulation style twist into a game like this. And it kind of has felt in the past like maybe they were hinting at it. Like in Trails into Reverie, there was a lot of, plot elements that seemed to suggest that that was a possibility, right? Achieving a singularity in terms of artificial intelligence, and just the way that artificial intelligence and virtual reality and augmented reality has become such a big part of the story from Daybreak onward. I don't think it's crazy to think that that might be where they were going and be a little worried about it if it was. And it's, other little things that I've thought about for years, right? Like the name of the goddess in the Trails universe is Aidios, Aidios, which could be AI, artificially intelligent, Dios, God, Spanish for God. I was like, please don't let that be it. Please don't let that be it. Let that just be a coincidence that that's how that name is written. I don't want that, there are enough it was all a simulation stories out there. And this series has gone on long enough that it would feel even more like a rug pull if we reached the end and learned that that was what was going on, in my opinion. So that's really, so long as they don't do that, I think that there's every chance that I will eventually come around on whatever the ending ends up being. Like I said, I am reasonably confident that I will be disappointed, and I am even more confident that most Trails fans will be disappointed in the ending. And I hope that the team at Falcom doesn't take that too personally. I think it's just inevitable for a story like this, that you are going to leave the audience somewhat, at least, dissatisfied, because there's just no way to fully pay off everything that has been set up in a series like this. It's beyond the normal human undertaking to do. Now, my hopes for the ending, not even so much like my hopes for the ending, but just my hopes for where they take the world of the story, right? I already talked about Zemuria being kind of separated off from whatever else is out there, the beyond, I think they call it. My thought has always been that there's maybe different layers to reality, and whether those are, stacked on top of each other or stacked outward, I don't know. But, it's from my estimation, it would be possible that the world of Nalyuta, which has been heretofore kind of just seen as this weird spin-off, that why is this a Trails game? But I think it has to be connected, or they wouldn't have bothered. That's the thing about it, right? There was no reason that they needed to bring that ancient PSP game over to America when they were like rapidly bringing out all the Trails games we missed. If it didn't fit into the main story, they didn't need to do that. I don't think anybody would have been devastated if they hadn't, if it wasn't important. So I think the fact that they made it a priority to bring it out says something about its importance to the series. And if reality in the series is divided up into these different layers or different, segments or whatever, the world of Nalyuta could be one of those segments, and maybe the virtual reality, the Garten spaces that we go to in the Daybreak games, maybe those are paths between these realities or some kind of shared reality between the two or something like that. And we know that like characters like McBurn, who has been a staple in the series for quite a long time now as part of Ouroboros, he is from this beyond as well. He's from outside of, I think that I've heard the theory that McBurn is Nalyuta or something. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that, but they're clearly doing something with what I imagine to be other realities. And I'm hoping that we get a lot more information on that, and that kind of informs how the series finally wraps up. Maybe, prior to the Great Collapse 1,200 years ago, the world was unified, and then the Great Collapse was the dividing of the world up into these segments or layers or whatever. Maybe Ouroboros ultimately trying to reunify the world or something. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of possibilities, but that's the sort of stuff that excites me about the overall big picture story. And if they can provide a satisfying resolution to things that incorporates some of those sorts of elements, I think that will help me a lot to achieve a level of satisfaction with the story that I think will be hard to attain otherwise. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you think that the ending to the Trails series is just inevitably going to be a disappointment? Are you holding out hope that they are going to somehow beat the odds and just impress the vast majority of players with how they wrap this up? Or are you just a complete pessimist and you think, nope, it's going to be trash no matter what? There is not a chance that they're going to ever be able to pull something like this off, and it's going to be talked about for generations as a cautionary tale in why you shouldn't do long-running video game series, because it's inevitably going to end with a failure that's so colossal that it retroactively ruins the series for everyone for the rest of time. Or, maybe someplace in between those extremes. Let me know how you feel down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I love talking about Trails, and I love that I have a place that I can come and do that and be able to hear your thoughts and interact with you all as well. If you're in the market for a JRPG podcast, please check out mine, the JRPG Pursuit. We put out new episodes about JRPGs every single week, and the link to that is down in the description. We are coming up on our 100th episode in the next couple of months here, maybe 3-4 months. I don't know. It's coming up pretty soon. So this summer we'll be celebrating 100 episodes of the JRPG Pursuit, and that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty exciting. Also, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing and all of that stuff just to appease the algorithm and help me reach more Trails fans, I would really appreciate that as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.